for most guys because of his intellect and his really strong moral, standards, or not so accessible for guys? What do you think?
Steve may be better suited to answer the question framed in that way, because I think about my own approach to him and what really interested him about me and what's accessible for me. And I'm not sure that I am able to right now step outside of that and think about what's accessible for the audience.
Right,
because I'm really focused on my own relationship with him. But I think that paradox is what really fascinated me about him. That he is, on one level, this kind of everyman character who is able to articulate his thoughts and his confusions and his guilt in a way that I think that I definitely responded to. He's a person who has this really enormous conscience and sense of morality that I think is really essential to who he is. And he also has this really strange intellectual detachment from what's around him, from his relationships that he has with people, where I think part of his struggle is that he doesn't know what to make of people and doesn't know what to make of reality and relationships and emotions and all of this stuff that he's kind of able to look at in this intellectual way that kind of makes him, I think, confused about some of the kind of more gut level ways of relating to people.
You think a bit of an alien to the rest of
I think that's part of the sense that he has, or the sense of what he's struggling with, and I think that was part of what really fascinated me about him as a character, was trying to figure out that combination of being so moral and conscious and so, and he is somebody who really honestly wants to help people and be there for people. And Louise accuses him at one point of you think that you make everybody family. And he does in a sense, but at the same time he's kind of detached from them in a way that is hard to reconcile. And I was really interested in that. And I hope that communicates and that's accessible for audiences, but I don't really know if I have a sense of that.
So go ahead, Steve.
It does. Well, one of the things we talked about at the beginning of the rehearsal is that it's, in some ways, Quentin is an unusual character to see in 2010. And that everything he's talking about in some ways belongs to a prior generation, because now we are so concerned with being individuals and being who we are and kind of honoring that our concern for being part of the brotherhood of man, our concern about not being separate people, as Quentin says, is much less than it was in this era. So what we had to do was just and the cast had to very much really kind of put themselves in the first person in each of these characters to try to kind of get through that and try to make these films human and understandable. But it's a challenge, because I think Quentin gives himself impossibly high moral standards that nobody can reach, and then beats himself up for not being able to reach them. And in some ways you want to say, oh, come on, lighten up, give yourself a break. But you also come to realize that if we don't have these kinds of moral standards, what are we going to become? And that's one of the essential questions that this thing is doing. So.
Well, now on to talking about Nora Pfeiffer's role, Maggie. And I feel very badly that she couldn't be with us today, because she does master this role so magnificently. And I do think it's a really hardcore kind of role for any actor to take on. I think that there are so many in and out, twisted psychological dimensions to this character. Can you speak to the process that Nora Pfeiffer went through to really make this role her own?
First of all, Nora is as unlike Maggie as I think any young woman can possibly be. She also, I was really lucky or smart. In all of the cast, we cast really smart actors. Really, not only were good actors, but were smart people. Nora's one of them, actor, very much so. And so that helped. We talked a lot at the beginning of rehearsals about this character is not Marilyn Monroe. This is Maggie. And indeed, I didn't encourage anybody to do any research into Arthur Miller's life or any of that, because that's not what it's different. It's different. And so we kind of built her from the ground up, and this is what happened to her. And Nora had done some She actually read a Joyce Carol Oates novel called Blonde, which was based on the story of Marilyn Monroe, but was not really the story of Marilyn Monroe, to kind of get an idea of some of the psychological stuff that the play alludes to but doesn't really flesh out. And so she kind of got an intellectual understanding of who this woman is. But then it was just, we just kind of worked kind of moment by moment, beat by beat, to kind of figure out what kind of power the woman has, how she uses that power, and what kind of power she doesn't have. And I don't know that there was anything more than that. It's just that Nora is incredibly in tune with herself, and so it was very easy to say, okay, why don't you try it this way, remove this and try this instead. And she did it, and there we were. So.
Well, I think what's so compelling is about this role, it is an incredibly childlike and vulnerable role, and yet there is this underlying tenacity about I'm going to get mine, and I am an artist,
she's a killer.
People, treat me like I'm a joke, and I'm going to, show all of them, and there's this rage. There's this rage against, there's an idea of exploiting kind of all the sexism and the, hormones that she can set racing, but there's also, she thinks she might be able to control it, but then she can't control it, and then she can't control herself, and then it's wild. This is a wild
very
role
schizophrenic.
play. Yeah.
There's a sense that I have in the scene that we have in the first act. There's a sense that I have a lot, kind of thinking ahead to where we're going and looking at what Nora is bringing to that scene in terms of this beautiful sense of naive innocence and youth and this kind of childish way of relating to things. And I think to myself, how are we going to get to where I know this play needs to get to in Act 2? And then in Act 2, she scares the crap out of me every night. And it's the same, I think, kinds of essence of who Maggie's character is, and the same kinds of personality traits that are driving both of those, that take her to very different places. But what Nora's playing is this really core idea of who Maggie is that allows her to go to both of these places and be the same person. It's amazing.
And I think what she's able to do is to go to the child that is Maggie. Because children have that absolute innocence and also have incredible privilege.
Yes.
And I think that's where we really kind of hit it, is getting to that. Maggie is, certainly in a woman's body, but is very much a child. And does all the things that children do to get attention, and to get power, and to punish if they don't have it. So.
Really, really an incredible role, and for no other reason than just to see another actor take on that role. I would love to see this play produced again and again and again, because it really is a major role for women in theater.
It's
an incredible role.
Yeah, very rich.
Basically, what was compelling for me about that whole relationship, not just the knockdown, drag-out, fight that Maggie and Quentin have in the second act. I mean, that is just that is truly to the floor. That is truly balls to the wall, over you in that. Incredible stuff. But I'll have to wrap up.
Okay.
It's just, it has to do with the past, that Maggie's past haunts her, even though she's this very childlike and now person, and Quentin kind of get away from his past.
Exactly. And they don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah. They both have demons, and it is amazing to wrestle with those demons and through that second act every night.
Well, hopefully you'll get to see that wrestling with demons after the fall that is still going on until
August 22nd.
August 22nd. So get to Eclipse Theatre at Greenhouse Theatre Center and see it before it closes. It's a wonderful show.